I answer that question. The answer is no.
Elles savent qu'il s'en vient. Et Team Stevenson.
In 1992, members of the United Nations met in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. They began to address what was then determined to be warming effects on the atmosphere resulting from massive worldwide production and burning of fossil fuels. In the ensuing years, nations of the world set goals to reduce the production of carbon dioxide and other so-called greenhouse gases. Agreements were made, but not kept, and today we live in a world in which drinking water, the sea surrounding us, the air we breathe, are all the more threatened and even more seriously degraded. Dr. Alan Betts, educated in England and now a Pittsford resident, is Vermont's leading climate scientist. He writes a column for the Rutland Herald. This is Entry Point. I'm Richard Alcott.
You know, I wanted you to elaborate just a little bit on a column that you wrote and published. I guess it was, I think it must have been in December. You wrote about how climate change is no longer a scientific or technical issue, but a moral issue.
We've known that our global climate was changing now for about 50 years. And about 20 years ago, all the nations of the world signed a declaration on climate change. It was a convention on climate change that we would do what was necessary to stop dangerous climate change, as it was called, but not carefully defined. And we made various promises and commitments. But they were always for the future. It's a very difficult topic to deal with because it means a transformation of where we dump all our waste into the atmosphere, say from burning fossil fuels, as well as where we dump our waste into the rivers and oceans and lakes. We make promises about the future, and when the future arrives, we tend to defer them into the more distant future because it's difficult for individuals and societies to face change. The change we need to make is a huge one because our whole industrial development, our whole economic growth model has been based on fossil fuels, economic growth of material goods, and on a global scale that's become unsustainable. The transformation requires us to make a lot of investment in new energy systems, which we're seeing around Vermont, new particularly development of solar farms, to shift us over the next decade or two away from dependence on fossil fuels. Our energy system is extremely inefficient. We waste staggering amounts of money and energy and fossil fuels in the process of just doing what we need to do. We have inefficient cars, we have leaky houses, we use electricity pretty wastefully. And so the other side of the transformation is we need to re-engineer our society so everything is twice or three times as efficient in terms of how much power it uses. And that's technically possible. We know how to do that, and little by little we do that. I mean, the refrigerators we use now use only a fifth of the electricity of the same size refrigerator 30, 40 years ago. So when I said in the column I wrote back in December that we know what to do technically, we know how to build an efficient society and how to change our energy system. But as a society, we've been very reluctant to do so. We're reluctant, and we're also being, in a sense, manipulated by those who have a vested interest in the status quo. The fossil fuel industry owns something like $30 trillion of fossil fuel assets, and has absolutely, it's in their interest to try and protect those and delay the day when it becomes costly or is heavily taxed to dig them out of the ground. As a society, though, the consequences of us postponing into the future this big transformation away from fossil fuels is that we are shifting all the costs, which are rising very rapidly every decade, onto our children and grandchildren. We've already reached the point where economists estimate that the damage just to our human society downstream may be as large as $1,000 trillion. And there's no way that our children and grandchildren can possibly pay those costs. And there's no way they can restore a global natural environment and ecology on which we depend for our food and all our natural resources after it's been severely affected and damaged by climate change. When we have the technical knowledge to do something, and we're unwilling to face it as a society, and we're simply shifting the burden downstream to our children and grandchildren, that's why I say that it has become a moral issue for us.
So I'm just wondering how effective motivation that really is, trying to appeal to people's moral sense. I mean, if a moral sense could be appealed to, wouldn't it have been done long before now? I have the feeling that in addition to climate change, the pollution in the air and in the sea and in the water supply is already critical.
The moral frame here is critical. Most people's interests, of course, are focused on their individual and personal interests. I mean, I made a comment, I think it was an earlier column, in which I said, we always teach our children when they're young to share. But in this issue, if you step back and look at it, we're extremely reluctant to share the earth in anything like its present form with our children and grandchildren. It is an issue of people's values, but we're built up a society rich in material goods, in which people expected a certain standard of living, and they are unwilling to see that riches and wealth can't be built on an unsustainable system where the costs and the debt involved is simply passed down into the future.
Dr. Alan Betts lives in Pittsford, Vermont. You've been listening to Entry Point.